Welcome to a new episode of the Business Coaching for Artists podcast. On today's episode, I have a special guest joining me, a veteran in the realm of electronic music production, a mentor and the creator behind the successful YouTube channel EDM Tips. I am, of course, talking about Will Darling. With over 25 years of experience in producing dance music, with some of his music actually earning a Grammy shortlist recognition, Will has not only honed his own skills to perfection, but also has dedicated himself to sharing his knowledge with aspiring producers around the globe. His YouTube channel, EDM Tips, launched in 2016 and has become a go-to resource for anyone eager to master the art of producing professional quality EDM, covering multiple genres: techno, house, trance, progressive, and more. Originally hailing from London, Will has cultivated a thriving community of over 225,000 followers on his YouTube channel. And, it doesn't stop there. Besides all the free content and tutorials and advice that he shares, Will has taken his passion for teaching to the next level. Through various coaching programs, he has helped and guided thousands of electronic dance music producers, helping them secure releases also on renowned labels such as Spinning, Stomped Records, Revealed, Armada, and Juna Deep, and more. And in today's interview, I'm going to ask Will everything about the origins of EDM Tips, and we'll talk about how he transformed his YouTube channel into such a success. And we'll also explore the role that entrepreneurship has played in his journey as a producer, mentor, and coach. So here we are. Hi, Will. Welcome. It's really good to have you on the episode. How are you feeling today?
I'm very well. Thank you for such a lovely, effusive introduction. I feel honored. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you have so many achievements that you've done over the past, since 2016 and before, with your own music. So there's going to be so much to talk about. First of all, I just want to say, congratulations on your success with EDM Tips. I think it's safe to say that you've become one of the go-to mentors, if not the go-to mentor for, aspiring electronic music producers. Actually, a few of my own students have done your program, one or more of your programs.
Oh, nice.
And actually one of them told me, who you should interview, Will Darling from EDM Tips. So he's really excited also for this interview, he told me. Now, my first question would be, can you share the story behind your YouTube channel or behind EDM Tips? What inspired you to start the YouTube channel? And, how did you envision the role that it would play in the community, electronic music community?
Sure. So it really came about through a matter of different chances and situations that arose in life that I chose to do it. So I've always done freelance music production and DJing since I was 16, and probably even before that. And I'm a little bit older than that now. And it got to a point in my life where I was getting tired of DJing and getting home at 5 a.m. a couple of times in the week. It was great fun in my 20s. I loved it. And then I met a woman and we started a relationship. And then it was like, okay, do I really want to be getting home this late? And then the whole day is wiped out the next day. So I was thinking, how can I take my passion and make a living from it without having to go traveling? I also remember being in a hotel room in Germany after DJing at a gig on my own, just thinking, you know what, I'm kind of a bit depressed now. There's a lot of hotel rooms, a lot of traveling around. So that was it, really. I think I just reached that next stage of my life where I became a bit more boring. And then a good school friend of mine I met at a party, he was teaching guitar online. And he said, you should do this. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be a teacher. And he was like, you should do it. And 6 months later, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. And he walked me through the steps. And I met another friend of mine who was making YouTube videos about sound engineering. And he gave me some tips on how to get started. So I think it was through being that place in my life, having the right mentors around, and yeah, those things together just kind of made me start it. And I never really wanted to be a teacher, but the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, and the better I got, and the more results I got for people, the more I enjoyed it. So I think that's an important thing as well in life, is you don't have to absolutely love something to start it. You can grow to love it. You know, as you do it more, and as you get better and you see results, that's very gratifying. So yeah, that's how I started it anyway. Hopefully that was not too rambling.
No, not at all. I actually think it's so interesting because my passion with business coaching for artists, or my mission with that, is to help artists build music careers that they love and that fit the life that they want to create for themselves. And you're kind of saying the same thing, you know. I had the touring schedule, I had all of that, which a lot of artists aspire to have, but that I've started to want something else for my life. And you found a business model that, it sounds like, you don't have to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, or stay awake till 5 a.m. in the morning anymore, right? No. So in what way would you say, to which extent would you say that EDM Tips has helped you build that life that you desired at that time?
Yeah, it's there, you know, it's getting there now. It's the first few years were the hardest, because as with music production, you're trying to make a name for yourself. You're not really good enough, but only through practice do you get better. And you're not really getting any monetary reward for it. So you have to finance it some other way. And for me, that was from continuing to doing mixing and mastering and DJing. So that's what earned the money. So I could do this on the side, which meant working a lot of hours, really. It's exactly the same as when you're starting out in music production for most people. But now I knew what the model could do, the business model, because I had mentors who have already done it. And I think that was a huge difference from anything else I've tried in life. Tried and failed, tried and failed, tried and failed. And actually with music production, the success came when I sought mentorship, because other people who had done it and had the success that I wanted could show me where the pitfalls were, and they could advise me. And, you know, I'm so grateful, like ridiculously grateful for the people who have helped me, because I know that I wouldn't have been able to do it without their help.
Yeah, and I really believe that successful people aren't afraid to get help. They understand that it's just smarter to make sure that you get the right guidance instead of figuring it out all on your own. And, you know, it sounds like you were also lucky to have people around you.
Yeah, I was.
To help you. But I think that's so important. If you try to figure it out all on your own, why would you want that just to begin with? You know, it's more fun to do it with other people. You'll have support. It's also usually things move faster because they've already got the experience, or they've already made the mistakes, and they can kind of help you and prevent you from having to make those same mistakes. So yeah, that's really beautiful. So I can imagine, like you said, like the first few years was really hard work. What was the moment that you felt like, okay, this is starting to turn into something?
When the income I made from it matched what I was making as a freelancer, then I realized, and that's what I advise for, and I can't advise really in any way other than from my own experience. But most people have to work for a living. Some people are born into a situation where that's not the case, but most people have to get a job. And unless you're, quite young, like in your late teens or your 20s, and you can throw everything into music production, if you've been working for 10 or 15 years and you're earning an income, I recommend to people who are of that age to just do it on the side until you've started getting traction, because I quit everything just to do it. And it is really stressful because you've got to write music to pay the rent. And then your creative decisions start to get infected by the need to make money in some ways. There's a balance to be met, though. And I'm sure we'll go into that when we talk about, artistry versus entrepreneurship. But yeah, it was after, I think, being a bit older, having attempted several things, learning more about myself, the importance of mentorship, and seeing a clear-cut business model that I could actually reverse engineer and see could potentially make enough money to live the life I wanted, coupled with something I'm passionate about and know about. It was kind of that sweet spot, really, a confluence of these things.
And, your YouTube channel has really grown. It's a big channel. I think when I looked on the website, I saw a lot of artist names also that I know or recognize. So like I mentioned, you've helped so many artists take up their production levels and also release music on renowned labels. While growing your YouTube channel, were there any strategies or a specific approach that you used to grow your channel to now, I think even 228,000 followers, which is a huge number?
Yeah, and it has been, I say it was hard work at the beginning. It was hard work at the beginning, and it's still hard work now. But now I've got proof of concept, and there's enough money coming in to be able to fund more time to spend on it and get help in areas that need be as well. So it's still a lot of work, but absolutely. So my first friend who helped me, his name's Mike Russell, and he's got even more subscribers than I have. And I am lucky to have bumped into these people, but just harking back to what we said, I think nowadays in the days of the internet, even if you're living in the sticks in the middle of nowhere, you have access to absolute world-class mentorship just because of the nature of the internet. And also, if you go out and you meet people in person, unless you're really like in the middle of the forest in the Appalachian Mountains or something, if you go out to a party and you've got a receptive and positive mindset, you will meet the people in the party who are doing stuff. But most people think they're not there, but they are there. You just need to have the right mindset to meet them, and you'll attract them because you'll be talking about those things and they go, oh, I did this and I do this. And that's how you meet people that have that similar mindset. But yeah, my friend Mike said, go on to other YouTube videos that are existing, see which ones are getting lots of views for relatively few subscribers, because that means the topic of the content is interesting. Look at the questions people have in the comments, watch the video, figure out how you can make a better version of it, and then do that. And then keep doing it every week for years. So that's the main strategy.
You mentioned every week. As far what I know about YouTube, when I looked into it, and also a bit of experience from work that I did for a record label, I know that consistency is key, like a regular upload schedule. Was that already the case when you first started out?
Yes, I actually think it's less the case now than it was. I think that the strategies change, and I've invested in coaching courses for YouTube as well as many other things. And again, for the exact same reason, just seeking mentorship all the time. But now I think storytelling plays a much bigger role. and the competition is much greater in YouTube now. But the regularity thing, I think that applies to anything that you do in life. It applied to music production when I was just doing that. And it was the same strategy. Listen to what I like that's doing well, see how I can make something that's similar but I like more or that sounds better. And your personal character comes through anyway. You can't, people are so scared to copy because they think it's disingenuous, but that's how you learn how to do stuff. And when you've learned how to do stuff, your own voice comes through anyway. So I think the weekly regularity with YouTube videos has been very important. But as I say, I think that applies to anything that you're trying to get good at.
And I think you mentioned something really important. Success leaves clues. So you can look at other people who already have done what you aspire to do or have the success that you aspire to have. And of course, you cannot know all the elements that played a role in how they got to where they are. But you can definitely learn a lot from it. And I totally recognize what you say, like looking at other people, whether it's when you develop yourself as an artist, your skills, your production skills, or in my case, your singing skills. First, you look to other people, and then you start finding your own voice. You start developing your own unique approach to things. Yeah. So I can definitely relate to that.
And the funny thing is that the more I've realized that, and then I've viewed or consumed or listened to or watched the great artists of humanity of all time, your Michelangelos in terms of music, your David Bowies, people like this. I went to Rome in the summer last year, and I started to see some Michelangelo stuff and all the great artists. And then I realized, that face there looks exactly the same as on that other artist's painting there. And then you realize that that's what the greatest artists of all time do, is that they copy and get better and adapt, and then they add their own twist to it. And David Bowie, one of the greatest popular musicians of the 20th century, said the only art he consumes is that which he can steal from. And if the greats are doing it, it astounds me. And I understand, because I used to be like that. I used to be really precious about that. But
very
the
protective.
older I get, the more I see it's so important.
That's interesting. Next time I'm in Rome, I'm going to pay attention to that. So, for artists listening to this who also dream of having a successful YouTube channel, what would be your advice to them?
To first and foremost, to have a strong enough why to push through it. And I would say, again, that's the same for anything.
Yeah, because it's not a overnight success kind of thing with YouTube.
No, it's a slog, and it's hard, and you will come up against all sorts of obstacles and disheartenment, if that's a word. So I write my whys, I write my goals, I stick them on my computer. And I think that those two things, really, having a strong enough why and then being consistent and seeking coaching, I would say those three things.
I love that, because that's actually one of the first things I work on with my students, their why and their vision and mission, because if that's strong enough, it can help you through the harder times when you are spending hours on end in your man or woman cave, feeling 100%. Like, in the dark, it's totally not cool. Feeling like, okay, when is it ever going to happen? For me. And then, remembering why you do things. And that can be something personal, like the life that you want to create for yourself or for your family. But it can also be like a bigger thing, like wanting to help people do something, or with your music, making a difference in someone's life. Those things can really help you through the hard times and just get you excited about what you're working on.
I think, sorry, I was just going to say that. I think that you can have various motivations, and some days one will be the one that works. They might even be negative motivations. You might have someone in your life that's really messed up. You know, maybe they're addicted to drink or drugs, and you think, that's my fuel today. I don't want that for myself. And the next day it might be something more noble, like I want to help the world and bring people together with music. And the next day it might be, I want to be able to care for my family in their old age, you know. So, and you can use any of them.
Whatever fuels your fire, right?
Exactly. Whatever fuels your fire.
Yeah. I love that. Well, you just mentioned Rome, and you also just returned from a few weeks of travel. How do you make sure your business keeps running while you're away? Because you already mentioned that you have some people that you work with.
Yeah.
Do you have a team? Or because I can imagine, you know, with everything you do, a YouTube channel and teaching and coaching programs and everything like content creation, you also have like, you're on Instagram, maybe you're on TikTok. I don't know. Are you on TikTok?
I am, but I've never actually been on there. So it's the team that makes that happen.
Okay, well, because that was going to be my question. There's only 24 hours in the day. So, you know, do you have a team? What kind of things do you delegate, etc.?
Yes, and that presents a whole new array of difficulties and opportunities for growth. But I'm engaged in life when I'm learning new things, and learning how to manage a team and how to do all of that is just another skill set. You know, it's exciting to me. But this trip that I've recently been on with my wife, it was actually our honeymoon, but we got married 4 years ago. So that should give an indication of how not going on holiday it's been. It's been a lot of work.
It's been a sacrifice, yeah.
Yeah, and when we were in Rome, because my wife is my main business partner. We do have other team members, which I'll touch upon soon, but my wife joined EDM Tips, left her job when we realized it could support both of us, and then we could both be working on it full time. But any trips that we've taken away in the last 8 years have always been half working trips. You know, we're doing emails in the morning. I'm doing live calls, coaching calls. Sometimes it's at a ridiculous time of day because of the time difference. Or we're renting studios so I can record more videos for courses in YouTube. So these last 3 weeks have been the first actual holiday in 8 years. But I haven't really needed one. You know,
the passion was what fueled your fire.
Yeah, because, you know, even having a break for a couple of days here and there is fine. You do need to have breaks for sure, but you don't need to go off for 3 weeks and not do a jot of work for the most part. Some people might, but I don't, because I'm excited and I enjoy it.
Yeah. So, wow. And how did it feel the first time?
It was scary.
Did you get an itch to work?
I did for the first few days, and then I got into holiday mode and I was like, I remember this. It's really nice. And then by the end, we were both like, okay, we're ready to do something useful now. There's only so much kind of sightseeing and cocktail sipping you can do before I think creative people and ambitious people feel an urge to do something useful.
I can totally relate to that. And that also immediately is an indication of how important rest is, because when I take rest or go on a holiday, after a few days, I actually get a lot of energy, and I want to work on my business or on my goals, or, because when there's more space, then the ideas start coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I would just want to get to it right away and not lose that moment of inspiration, which also shows you rest is actually productive in a sense.
I did a kind of, I say it disparagingly, a cheesy American kind of self-help course a few years ago in my 20s. And I remember one of the coaches saying, if you break apart the word recreation, it's like recreate. like recreation. And I always remember that and think, yeah, that's really true, because you need to, it's like going to the gym, you need to have rest days, and then when you come back, you're stronger and more energized. And I think that the mind and the body aren't separate things. It's just all the body, really. So if you've been thinking a lot and employing a lot of mental energy, you need to give it a rest. Otherwise, you'll get fatigued.
Yeah, and what I also notice, being an entrepreneur myself, running a business, having all these goals, there's a lot of time when you are creating output.
Yes.
Also in what you do. But you also need time to fuel yourself, to with inspiration, with ideas, through mentors. I just love learning.
Yeah.
So for me, there needs to be a balance between creating output and being the one that makes the music or writes music or helps other people or coaches or creates content. But it can't all just be that one direction. I also need, besides just rest, other things to recharge me and to, inspire me. I don't know if I explain it clearly enough.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. You
Which
need,
I think that's important for every creative person that creates a lot and gives a lot from themselves, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And it can be something as simple as going for a walk in nature. That can be enough to get the creative juices flowing and get some distance from the work. It could be consuming other people's art. I listen to music all the time when I'm not working, because I love music. And then it'll spark up ideas, or you watch a movie, or you go to an art gallery, or whatever it is,
Exactly.
You need to, I think, be receptive to input as well as output.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the right way, a good way of putting it. So I also heard you say, of course, you also have a lot of different hats on, right? In your business. And then you started working with a team, and that's, like you said, there's a whole new skill set basically to learn. And I think that's the difference between maybe an artist thinking as an artist and also being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because how would you say that entrepreneurship and thinking and acting like an entrepreneur as opposed to just an artist, how would you say did that play a role in your own journey? Because maybe I should explain myself a little bit more. What I mean when I say like thinking only as an artist, you think from an artistic perspective. Like I had a conversation once with someone who was like, with an artist who was like, I think my music is great. I want to, it's my dream to play on Tomorrowland. And then I was like, but you do understand that it's not just because of your music, right? Tomorrowland is, if you, as an entrepreneur, you will understand that Tomorrowland or any event, they need to sell tickets. That's their business model. Yeah. So where maybe as an art, if you only think as an artist, you would be like, oh, but they should book me just based off my music.
Yeah.
Whereas when you think as an entrepreneur, you understand like, okay, but they are a business, they need to sell tickets. So if I want to play there, especially big events like Tomorrowland, I need to make sure that besides my music, I portray myself as a brand. I have a fan base. And that for me is the difference between just being an artist, and also being an artist and an entrepreneur, like a musicpreneur or a creative entrepreneur. Yeah. And how would you say that entrepreneurship has played a role in your own journey?
It's played a huge role in my journey, and I think it all goes back to a book I read, a friend of mine when I was about 24, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it completely changed the way I viewed the world, and a way of thinking as well, really. Because thinking like an artist can be a really painful and depressing way to think sometimes. It's very insular. Whereas if you can, and I still have it, like every day I get it, but if you can switch, or for me at least, if I can switch my thinking to how can I serve this other person, or how can I serve these people, then your ego has to take a back seat, because you're having empathy. So you're trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And for me personally, I've found that incredibly powerful, because any self-doubts just fall by the wayside, because you're not thinking about you, you're thinking about them. And I think that, again, I think that applies to anything in life. You know, if you're a young man, you're nervous about going to ask a girl out. If you stop thinking about you and just think about, you know, okay, maybe we can go out and she'll have a great time, then it takes away that block. And if you're approaching other people in the industry to get a gig somewhere, if you're thinking what are they in this for? How can I help them get that? Then you'll, one, be better at whatever it is they want from you. And two, you will be able to get over the fear of approaching them, because you're just thinking about them. And then if they say no thanks, it's like, you can then ask, oh, you know, why not? Could you let me know what I could do that might help? Anything like that. So I found it the most important thing really is to be able to try and serve people.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective to think of entrepreneurship that way, because a lot of times what I notice with artists is just the whole word business, or the idea of entrepreneurship kind of throws them off, because they think it's they associate it maybe like I used to do with men in suits in big boring office buildings, and you know, getting money off of people, or being a salesy person, you know. Whereas it's all about serving people. Selling is serving, marketing is serving. That's what I believe, at least. So we just had a little error on the camera, and then we had to pause the recording. But it actually got us talking about, we were talking about entrepreneurship before that happened, and this little error actually got us talking about the fact that as an entrepreneur, as a creative entrepreneur, you should not be afraid of things going wrong and making mistakes, because those are actually the most valuable lessons. And I think that also sets successful people apart from people who are not going to achieve their goals, because they're not afraid to get into action and to make mistakes. Would you say that you've failed your way to success? Can you relate to that?
I was going to say failure is success is failure, but I think that this is something, again, one of my mentors said to me. He said, you only fail when you give up. And it's true, because no one produces a track or sings a song and it's good. Everyone makes a rubbish first song and first 20 songs. It's the price that you have to, it's one of the many prices that you have to pay. So at school, I think we're conditioned to think that failure is a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing if you continue and learn from it.
I think it can be embarrassing in the moment when it happens.
Sure. Yeah.
But and it's such a cliche, but it's so, I found it to be really true and really helpful. Like, if it's only a mistake if you see it that way, but if you see it as an opportunity to learn and get better, then there are no mistakes, really.
Yeah, and another line that I always remember that I heard on an American self-help tape that was recorded in the 40s or 50s. It's like really old one. He said, "In every failure is the seed of a greater success." And I was like, that's so true, because you can springboard. You could be going da 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 and then fail at something, And instead of just continuing like that, you can then go to something much bigger that you would never have even thought of had you not had the failure. But it's a decision to think of it like that. And of course, because a lot of people will fail and they'll just take the embarrassment or the pain and then shrink back into their shell. But the quicker you can, and it is training, I think, it's the quicker you can train yourself to get out of your shell and then look at it objectively, the quicker that you can go on to bigger and better things.
I think now that you mentioned this, makes me think of another quote that I heard recently, but talking about entrepreneurship, like as an entrepreneur, like the quote is, business has nothing to do with feelings. And of course, if you approach things from an artistic perspective or a personal perspective, then a disappointment or an embarrassing moment or whatever can really throw you off. And like you said, the challenge maybe is to not let it throw you off for too long. It's okay to have a bad moment and to have to work through it, but then, don't stay in that for too long. And get back into action, get back into the saddle.
Yeah. And I think that gets easier. I think it gets easier with age, but I think it's actually just gets easier with experience. And it just so happens that you tend to get more experience as you grow and age. But I know people who are in their 60s and 70s who seem to never have learnt the lesson of being able to get back on the horse. So
mindset is everything, right? At the end of the day.
And watching or listening to podcasts like this is exactly the right thing to do, because I think that words are like food. Right? If you eat donuts all day, you're going to get fat and unhealthy. If you listen to negative words all day, then your mind will get unhealthy. If you feed your mind with positive, constructive stuff, there is no way that you will not think more positively and constructively. It would literally defy the laws of nature. You can't eat donuts and get thinner. You can't listen to positive stuff and get worse and more depressed. And I think it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, to be aware what you consume also. What you consume on a daily basis. So just to return to the subject of a team and delegating, when did you feel like, okay, I'm ready to start hiring people, and how did you start?
So again, I was lucky, because I say lucky, I literally wrote about what I wanted from my future wife on a list. And I met my future wife and she ticked all of that and a load more, and stuff that I didn't even consider. So part of that was being able to talk about business ideas and, work on things together, because I knew that would keep us engaged and, interested in life and stuff. So I was lucky that I met her, and then she started helping out in the spare time when she wasn't at work with small things, until it got to the point where she could come on full time. And then she basically took everything away from me that wasn't the most important things that I could be doing, which is making courses, coaching, and making YouTube videos. So we made a massive list of everything I had to do. And she said, okay, well, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And then we've then applied the same for her list, and then tried to assign that to different people as well, going for the most time consuming or the most painful or the things we're least skilled at, and trying to prioritize what to outsource first.
I think that's a really awesome approach. Maybe you've also read the book about the Genius Zone. I don't remember who it is from. Yeah. And I'm not the person to really explain, because I've never read the book, but I've heard a lot about it. But I think it's such a good point. Like, look at what your skill set is and where you are where it has to be you to do it.
Yeah.
And all the other things that can be done by other people who are usually then also better at it, can do it more effectively. And at one point, at first, you can still do everything by yourself. But at one point, as you grow, you're going to reach a point where you'll reach a
Plateau.
A plateau. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. And in order to grow further, you need to delegate things. And whether that is like having like a whole team, or just starting with one person or a student, who studies something in related to what you do.
Yeah.
That's also a good way to start, and just ease yourself into it. And also understand that, because sometimes I think we feel like, but I can do it better.
Yes.
But no, you can do the things like in your case, creating the course content, the tutorials. You are the face of EDM tips. So those are things, it's harder to have someone else do them for you. Although I do think you have also other coaches you work with.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is something that, we're planning for this year as well. But it is hard building a team. Like, we've worked with so many people. We've gone to like 8 or 9 people before you find someone that you just gel with and their product's really good. And it's time consuming though, but I think it's worth it in the long run. Otherwise, ultimately, you'll be doing everything forever.
Yeah. And I think, and that's time consuming also.
Yeah.
And I think everything at the beginning is time consuming. Like the first time I did an interview like this, I had to figure out everything. Okay, what are the settings I need to use? The camera, the microphone. And then I made a few mistakes and I learned for the next time. So everything you do for the first time I created a reel, the first time I recorded my own vocals, there is always a learning curve.
Yeah, of course.
But then the next time you'll be faster.
Yeah.
There's so much I think we could talk for hours, but let me just check my questions, because also
Okay.
I also asked a few. I sent an email to my mailing list for people to submit questions. So let me see. Yeah, so you've coached a lot of students, and many have achieved remarkable success, I would say, also on major EDM labels.
Yeah.
What are some of the principles, or what kind of advice do you emphasize in your coaching programs to help aspiring artists?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, because there are certain characteristics that the most successful students have, and without fail, I can tell on first meeting them, they've got what it takes. And I would say the first is they have a clear vision or goal of what they want to achieve, and it's quite focused. It's something like, I want to DJ at Tomorrowland, or I want to release on Anjuna Deep and be a full-time artist. It's quite, it's specific. It's like sniper rifle specific. 2, because, okay, 2 is part of 1, which is they have a very clear idea of which genre they want to produce. And sometimes that comes with a bit of time, and if you love lots of different genres, as I do, it's a hard thing to do, is to make a decision, but a decision must be made. So they know what they want to achieve. They know which genre they want to produce. They are completely okay with referencing and copying other music to learn the skills that they need to learn. And those are the three main things. And they work hard, and they have and that's due to having, I would say, a very strong why. Now, I don't know all of their whys. A couple of them I do. Like maybe they've lost both their parents and it's all on them, or they absolutely hate their job. Whatever it is, I guarantee, even the ones who haven't told me, they have a strong why, because you have to work hard a lot.
There's a lot of sacrifice involved. So
there is.
your why or your passion has to be big enough.
Yeah, but it's funny because the sacrifice doesn't feel like sacrifice when you find the right thing. Like, I sacrifice going out to parties and stuff, but when I do, most of the time I'm thinking I could be at home doing some more EDM tip stuff. And it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to not do those things. I'm almost pulled towards wanting to work. I'm not saying that's healthy, but
I think you're describing a characteristic of the type of person that has the potential to be successful, where they are just so excited about what they do, they're willing to make those sacrifices, really, or their why is so big, they're willing to make those sacrifices. And actually, it's like it sounds almost like also your job is a hobby for you, which is the same kind of the same for me.
yeah.
And at the same time, I don't just want it to be a hobby. I'm more ambitious than that. And sometimes with artists who come to me for guidance, sometimes I just have to be honest and be like, maybe for you it's better to just do it as a hobby, because when you turn it into your work, your relationship to it also changes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think probably even more importantly than excitement is discipline. Because everyone can be excited. Everyone is excited, when they start producing or they want to join a course, but it's not all fun. It's boring, it's hard, it's frustrating. But the people who turn up when they say they're going to turn up and do the work, they're the ones that get ahead, and they're the ones that do it.
Commitment is a big thing, right? Yeah. And then, of course, it's those moments where you see the fruits of your labor, even if it's a small thing. Yeah. I'm also all for always celebrating even the small wins,
Very important.
That's the moments where you're like, yeah, that's what I'm doing it all for, right?
Yeah. And it's a marker of that you're on the right path, so it is really important.
So that's super interesting that there's such clear, that immediately when you speak to an artist, you can tell, like, do they have what it takes? And that's, of course, your experience with all of those years of working with artists.
Yeah, and it's not that I always get it. I always get the superstar ones right, but then other people who are a little unsure, that maybe they haven't been producing so long and they find their feet after a few months, and then they go on to achieve big things. So it's definitely not a foolproof.
It's not a one size fits all kind of thing.
No, that's it.
Everyone starts somewhere else. But it does sound like maybe there's insecurities and inexperience, but there's a certain on a mindset level, they share similar characteristics.
And I think that is a clear vision of where they want to be in the future, above all else.
Yeah, so for anyone listening, take out your notepad now and write down your vision and your why. Really explore what that is for you. I think that's going to be really helpful throughout your journey. Now, we're almost nearing the end of this episode. What I also wanted to ask is, for an artist listening right now, also maybe want to get into teaching production, which I think in recent years has become a really competitive scene or a competitive area.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to them to help them to make sure they can stand out in the market?
So you don't need everyone in the world to know about you. You just need enough people to earn what you want to earn doing what you want to do. And that's not that many people. It's like, I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but there's something like it called
The
a
true
thousand
fans theory.
yeah, the 1,000 true fans. If you've got 1,000 fans paying $100 a year to see your shows, to buy your merchandise, then that's $100,000 a year. That's a good income. So as a coach, you can do the same thing. And I would say, first and foremost is make sure that you're actually good. You don't need to be the best producer in the world. You just need to know more than the people that you're teaching to bring. And in fact, what I found a struggle and a mark of a good teacher, I think, is if you are very advanced and you've got advanced skills, you have to try and remember what it's like to be a complete beginner and not confuse them. So wherever you are in the journey, you don't need to be David Guetta or Calvin Harris. You could be, a third of the way up, but you'll still be able to help other people. So that would be the first thing. I think, don't think you need to be the best in the world. You just need to be good enough. And the second thing is start small, just start doing one-on-one coaching, because you'll probably be a bit rubbish at coaching at the beginning, and that's okay. So you can offer it really cheap, and then you can use the results that you help your students get to help sell your services, because then you've got results. So I would say don't focus on the money at first, focus on getting result. Again, just focus on serving people and getting results for them. What do they want? How can you get it for them? And then the money comes later,
That's such a great point. I really love that, to focus on serving and then taking it from there and just seeing it as a learning curve. What I've also noticed with coaching one-to-one myself is that it really helped me figure out, maybe like what you said earlier at the beginning, I was still looking a lot at what other coaches were doing. But through one-to-one coaching, I really discovered who I am as a coach.
Yeah.
What the subjects are that I love teaching the most, and that I can also help artists the most with.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning. Maybe you recognize this too. I learn a lot from my students as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, it was super interesting for me to notice. Well, I think that's such great advice for anyone who wants to get into teaching, not just production, but coaching, or like you say, it applies to many things, I think, in life and in business, especially. Like, how can I serve people and start there?
Yeah. And, it kind of sticks in my craw a bit when I see 18-year-old life coaches, because, but lots of people who have come to me and said, how can I start teaching? Not necessarily music, but whatever it is that they are interested in. They just believe that they're not qualified to do it. And I know what that feels like, because I battle with that still. But if you've been doing something that you're interested in for 5 years, you know enough to help people who haven't been doing it for 5 years. If you've been doing it for a month, just do it longer first. You don't want to be a teacher if you've been doing it for a month. But after 5 years, you'll know enough that you can really, really help people.
And that also ties in, I think, with something else we discussed earlier, getting mentors.
Yeah.
Because maybe an artist who's listening right now is like, okay, I'm just starting out, but I would love one day to do what Will Darling does. Then now, listening to this, I'm talking to that person right now, whoever they are. Start now. That now is the time to already start investing in your knowledge and getting guidance from other mentors and learning about building a business, building a coaching business, etc. Start before you're ready, in that sense, and then you can start working on that now already.
Yeah, that's it. It's a real shame when I meet people who are excited about doing coaching, and then I give them a bunch of stuff to do, simple stuff, and then they just don't do any of it. And then one in every 50 people takes it and runs with it, and they're the ones who are going to actually do it.
So to that person listening right now, be that one person.
You can do it. You can absolutely do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, the final question I want to ask you, what's next for Will Darling and for EDM Tips?
Well, we've got big plans this year. Just growing the YouTube channel, updating all the courses because technologies are changing all the time. We're going to start having a monthly subscription community whereby people can get feedback, guest interviews with big name producers. Now the difficulty is just doing it. But
yeah,
it's just one thing at a time. Don't focus on too many things at a time. So we're just growing this year and really knuckling down. We've got a great team now. It's taken a long time to build. It's small. There's maybe 5 core members and a couple of people who help when we need it. But yeah, we're going to keep it small and lean. We like the personal approach and it's working for us.
That sounds amazing. Beautiful plans.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be following along with the channel. And speaking of, I'm going to put all the links for those who don't know you yet, which I don't think are many. That I will put the links to your website and the YouTube channel and your Instagram in the episode description, because a lot of my listeners are also from other genres, but might find a lot of value. I think even though, you teach dance music production, just from what we just discussed in the last hour, there's so many nuggets of wisdom. I think any artist, doesn't matter what genre they are in, can benefit from. So absolutely. I would say to all the listeners, definitely go follow Will's YouTube channel or on Instagram, whatever is your preferred channel. And yeah, all that's left for me to do now is to thank you for being here today and for doing this interview with me. I really enjoyed it. And I wish you, the best of success with everything you do. And I'm sure this is not the last time we'll be talking to each other.
I sincerely hope not. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you very much for having me on.
That means a lot to me to hear. Thank you so much, Will. If you enjoyed this episode and like Will, you have your own service-based music business or want to develop one, and with service-based, I mean that you sell a music-related service such as production, mixing and mastering services, teaching, and things like that. But you feel like it's not really going in the direction that you want, either because you don't have enough clients or students, or maybe you're actually quite busy keeping up with the demand, but at the end of the month, you have little to no income to show for it. If that's the case, then I highly recommend you download my new ebook. It's hot off the press, 8 mistakes that keep you underpaid and overworked while building your service-based music business. The thing is, what I've noticed is that often the reason you are overworked isn't because you work too hard. Often the real reason is that the work that you do is not giving you the results and the income you desire. And that is what starts to eat at you and suck your energy and make you feel drained and overwhelmed. Now, the good news is, if you can relate to this, you're not the only one. I see it a lot with musicians that I work with and musicians around me in my network. And the other good news is that it can be fixed. But fixing something starts with acknowledging what's wrong. And that is why in the ebook, I describe the 8 common mistakes I see musicians make that keep them underpaid and overworked. You can download the ebook for free via the link in the description for this episode. And yeah, with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. Let me know in a comment what your favorite part of this interview was, and I hope to see you again for the next one.